reality is this land was stolen through the wars of dispossession, and people were killed. And the only way to reverse that pain is to restore the land back into the hands of the people. Today, everything else is cheap except the land. It might be very expensive to buy this land and very cheap to build this beautiful building. Why should it be? In my previous life, in a wrong organization, I happened to come across the Botswana students and I sat with them. At that time, they were getting 5,000 rand, apart from everything else being paid for. 5,000 rand. My mother went to the grave without earning 5,000 rand. Students are given 5,000 rand from minerals. We are told, leave coal, go for green, go for alternative energy. We're not opposed to that. The same coal that we must not use, we're even given money not to use it, gets into the trucks. Where does it go? Leave China because you hate it. It's going there, that's fine. But it's also going to Germany. It's also going to UK. The banks are opposed to that because they're exploiting our people. We are going to establish a state-owned bank and give our people good interest rates, not driven by the need and desire to maximize profit. And where there is corruption, those people must go to jail, irrespective of who they are. So the problem with us is that for the past 30 years, I think we only jailed Tony Ngeni for discount. But with so much corruption, only one name can come up. Every learner in South Africa is going to do mathematics and not miss literacy. Why? Give our children everything else the Boer said we must not get. Mandela's problem, which he should have realized at the time, what was at the center of the oppression of our people? It was education. Apartheid was education. They said on education, separate them. We may not be friends with RMB or any of the capitalist institutions, but we coexist in the same environment and we ought to understand one another because our ideological differences shouldn't mean enmity. So we don't see RMB, whatever other financial institution as an enemy. We see them as institutions that needs to be transformed. Our policies are very simple. Our battle cry is land, jobs, and stop load shedding. So we seek to expropriate land and without compensation because the land was never compensated when it was taken. Power stations are a national security key point. So I'm not going to entrust the future of my country in the hands of a private man called Johan Rupert, who can decide any day I'm closing my power station the way he closes his own kitchen. But I'm going to own the railway lane. Because trains, these locomotives, they can be replaced at any time. If you take them, I can get them somewhere and put them there. But the day you wake up crazy and you say you are taking your railway lane out because you don't like Malema, what alternative can I get? Once there is a need for coalition, then you must know there is a need for Cyril to go. And it will not be initiated by the EFF. His own party is going to say, my guy, we need to try someone else.
Welcome back to DVC African Updates. My name is Ivan Mugale, and today specifically we're going to be reacting to Julius Malema, the EFF president's manifesto. Well, he stands high chances of being the next president of South Africa. His manifesto has sent shockwaves all around the world, including the Western governments, and we have seen some of the Western media companies labeling him as the most dangerous man on the African continent. Well, we want to find out why, and we want to find out what is specific about this manifesto, and we're going to be watching this video and I'll be reacting to it.
Thank you for once more receiving the EFF. I said to my brother, we may not be friends with RMB or any of the capitalist institutions, but we coexist in the same environment and we ought to understand one another because our ideological differences shouldn't mean enmity. So we don't see RMB, whatever other financial institution as an enemy. We see them as institutions that needs to be transformed.
That's right.
Our policies are very simple. Our battle cry is land, jobs, and stop load shedding. So we seek to expropriate land and without compensation, because the land was never compensated when it was taken.
Wow.
And someone says, no, don't scare investors, but even investors are scared of the truth, they can run. The reality is this land was stolen through the wars of dispossession.
Wow.
And people were killed. And the only way to reverse that pain is to restore the land back into the hands of the people. What happens to these beautiful buildings that are on top of this land? They remain R&B buildings, but this is our land. They should know that their building is sitting on top of our land. And if they decide to do anything on this land, which is not in line with what they occupied the land for, they should seek permission from the state. If they no longer have any use for this land, they should report so to the state so that it can be reallocated to an alternative person who will put this land to use. This will not be done through the army. It will be done through constitutional consultation, because our constitution allows amendments. So if you do, because if all of you, when you argue, say, follow the constitution. We've got the best constitution in the world. But when we follow the constitution and amend it, it is a problem when it's not favorable. So we want all of the land to be in the hands of the state, so that when the state wants to make an allocation, there is no difficulty. Today, everything else is cheap except the land. It might be very expensive to buy this land and very cheap to build this beautiful building. Why should it be? The land must be available to those who are going to use it, and those who don't use it, they must lose it. Someone says foreign direct investment does not invest where it doesn't own the land. It's not true. All special economic development zones in South Africa, the land is owned by government, and foreign investment put its investment on the land that is owned by government. So it shouldn't be inconsistent argument that no, when the state owns the land, the people will not invest on that land when they are investing on it now. If there is any economic development happening in any big economic development zones, go and check the ownership of that land. It's a state-owned land. We need to do jobs. You cannot do jobs without industrialization. We need to industrialize. Even the Bantustan, the smallest states of black people during apartheid, they had factories. There is no single Bantustan leader, be it Mangope, be it Nsangwesi, be it whatever, including Buteles. All of them, if you go into their areas, they are industrial sites during apartheid by Bantustan government. Tell me now of any industrialization that has been state-led, and then we complain about jobs. Very rich in minerals. All those minerals are extracted from our land, and they are put on top of a truck to Richards Bay. When you look at that, you say, no, it's chrome. It's not chrome. It's jobs in a truck transported to China to go and do job creation in China. Because that chrome, when processed here, we don't even clean it here. So when processed here, you can imagine how many jobs can be done. So we need state ownership of the mines. So when we say nationalization of the mines, we don't mean we're going to take a mine of Anglo-American and nationalize it. We mean the state must have its own mining company, which will be given preference, especially on profitable minerals. Let's go to Mokopane, for instance. The platinum in Mokopane, Anglo-American is no longer mining. When it gets mining rights, it outsources the mining to other companies. But Mokopane, they are mining it themselves directly. Why? The platinum is just here. It's the most profitable mine of platinum. And that, if was owned by the state, how many jobs were we going to create with that money of that platinum alone? How many social responsibilities can we attend to with that money alone? How do we do that? The state is not driven by profit. The state with its money is able to reinvest in the social well-being of our people. Let's take diamond. Let's go to Mokopane, for instance. The platinum in Mokopane, Anglo-American is no longer mining. When it gets mining rights, it outsources the mining to other companies. But Mokopane, they are mining it themselves directly. Why? The platinum is just here. It's the most profitable mine of platinum. And that, if was owned by the state, how many jobs we're going to create with that money of that platinum alone? How many social responsibilities can we attend to with that money alone? How do we do that? The state is not driven by profit. The state with its money is able to reinvest in the social well-being of our people. Let's take diamond. De Beers says we cannot touch diamond. Those are the Oppenheimers. They go to Botswana. They give the government of Botswana 50% ownership of the diamond. When it comes to South Africa, the same company owned by the same people are refusing to do that. What does the government of Botswana do with the 50% profit they make in the diamond? They invest it in the social beings of the children of Botswana. All children of Botswana, everywhere in the world, get a stipend every month. When I was in Washington, D.C., some other time in my previous life, in a wrong organization, I happened to come across the Botswana students and I sat with them. At that time, they were getting 5,000 rand, apart from everything else being paid for. 5,000 rand. My mother went to the grave without earning 5,000 rand. Students are given 5,000 rand from minerals. The last point is with regard to load shedding. We are told, leave coal, go for green, go for alternative energy. We're not opposed to that. But we're not going to go for anything new without a base. Coal is our base. And when we break new ground, you can't break new ground without having a base. You consolidate your base and then you break new grounds. If green is going to give me 1,000 megawatts, then I can go and close a coal power station of 1,000 megawatt capacity because I've already developed alternative of 1,000 megawatt. We are made to celebrate nonsense, but people are shutting down power stations, and then from there they don't know where to get an alternative source of energy. We can't allow that. So the same coal that we must not use, we're even given money not to use it, gets into the trucks. Where does it go? Leave China because you hate it. It's going there, that's fine. But it's also going to Germany. It's also going to UK. There was a debate that UK is actually trying to revive one of its biggest coal power stations. They're getting from the same coal that we have signed that we must not use it. As a result, we don't have electricity. Secondly, the power stations must be security national key points. So whoever works there must have a security clearance so that we will not sabotage from that strategic position. But these power stations must be serviced and maintained. The maintenance money and servicing of power station must not go into the pockets of the people. The power station must have people who are well capacitated, qualified engineers. And even if it's cadre deployment, nothing wrong with it. It ought to be on merit. As long as you've got the proper qualification, whether you are ANC or not, get the job. There is a person there who decides that we are going to level 6, stage 6, stage 3, stage 6, stage 1. It's called system controller. Ask one minister of the ANC, do you know who system controller is? They don't know. They just get told we are now going to 6. And they don't have the technical know-how to counter that we are not at a point where we require stage 6. So you do as you are told, because we have got no state capacity to deal with such issues. Those are the key issues that We believe as the EFF, if we address these issues, we'll have a proper country. There is no one here who must say to us, there must not be a state bank. Because a state bank, nationalization of banks means the state must establish its own bank. And they say, no, RMB is going to have a problem. This will lead to the RMB closure. There is a school here called Grindstein, Sundown. There's a public school here called Grindstein High School. There is a school here called St. David's Private School. The public school has not led to the closure of the private school. There is a private hospital. There is a public hospital. The public hospital has never led to the closure of a private hospital. Why would the ownership of a bank, a public bank, lead to the closure of the private banks? The banks are opposed to that because they're exploiting our people. We are going to establish a state-owned bank and give our people good interest rates, not driven by the need and desire to maximize profit. We must make the money, we must generate our money back, make some profit, but our people should be able to live. Our teachers, our nurses, even doctors, not let's leave doctors, teachers, nurses, and these civil servants don't qualify for cars, don't qualify for houses. No bank wants to finance them. Doctors, highly educated, 7 years. The biggest car they can drive is Golf 5. Golf 5. That's what they qualify for.
Mr. Malema, could I interrupt you there? Are you going to bank with this bank? Are you going to put your own money?
Yes. That's where the salaries of the employees of the state are going to be paid from there. The monies of all the departments are going to be banked from there. And we are not going to use any of your money to build a state bank. We already have money in the African bank. The other day I said Net Bank, and someone was like, I realized, oh yeah, African bank, through the Reserve Bank, we have shares in African bank. So why can't we grow our shares in African bank and ultimately push everyone out and take African bank to be a state bank? Because already we are participating. It's not going to be the first time the state participates in the bank. Why is the state being pushed away? The state is being pushed away because private financial institutions are scared of competition. They thrive through colluding.
So effectively, you saying more state-owned companies participating in critical sectors of the economy. One would say, what happened to institutions like the post office, for instance? Isn't that one of state banks that could be operational?
Well, the post bank was one of the most alternative options that we could have utilized to establish a state bank. Post office was one of the most useful institutions for us black people, especially the rural masses of our people. They received a lot of services from post office. So when you say technology has advanced and therefore post office has become irrelevant, it's nonsense, because there are private companies now that are doing the job that post office could have done. But the corrupt, the leadership that lacks vision, the leadership that says, but making post office a bank now, how is it going to give me money now? Because those are the people of eating now. They don't have time and the patience to wait. So you need a leadership that has got vision, that will protect the state-owned enterprises and make sure they are led by men and women with the necessary capacity. And where there is corruption, those people must go to jail, irrespective of who they are. So the problem with us is that for the past 30 years, I think we only jailed Tony Ngeni for discount. But with so much corruption, only one name can come up.
Corruption is one of the things that collapsed state-owned companies.
Yes.
What is going to be different under a coalition that you might be part of if you are successful in the upcoming elections in terms of dealing with corruption? We have been talking about it for many years, and different political parties have been talking about it, but nothing much has changed in a visible way. SOEs continue to be run down, and we are not seeing big politicians being jailed?
Well, you need to professionalize the civil service. You need people like Mkwanazi, the Commissioner of Police in KZN, who knows that when I'm a policeman, I do police work. I'm not here to impress politicians, whether a politician likes it or not. So we need people who are professionals, who are going to say, this is my responsibility, I love the country, and everybody you employ, you must give them the constitution and the flag and tell them this is what you must be loyal to. Not this other shenanigans. They are here to live. Every 5 years there's going to be someone. The state will remain. Be loyal to the state. We need to arrest. That's the only thing, and we're going to arrest under our government. We're going to run this government, by the way we are running EFF. When you come to EFF events or offices or whatever project the EFF execute, you will not find anyone running around sweating, not knowing what they are doing. Everything is orderly. Everybody knows my job is to do this, from there I go home. We need leadership and decisive leadership.
Okay.
Those are the EFF condition of expropriation of land without compensation, of industrialization and beneficiation, of fighting corruption and making education free. There's a new condition that we have put there. Every learner in South Africa is going to do mathematics and not miss literacy. Why? Give our children everything else the Boer said we must not get. So Fairwood said, why do you give an African child mathematics? Because they won't use it anyway. He was right, because mathematics meant high jobs, and high jobs were reserved for whites. So you're going to learn mathematics, then what? So we ought to teach our children mathematics so that they've got the capacity to think. Mathematics helps them to expand their brain. And we don't care whether they pass it or not. Of course, we care that they pass it, but even if you don't pass, at least you did mathematics. There's no dumb cop that has done mathematics. Mathematics are for thinkers. And that's why we want our children to be thinkers. That was denied by Fairwood. ANC, instead of giving us RDP houses in 1994 and giving us food parcels and giving us all free this, they should have given us free education. 30 years now, there will not be a family that needs an RDP house. We would have built our own houses, much more beautiful houses, because we'll be educated with good positions and able to pay for our own responsibilities. Mandela's problem, which he should have realized at the time, what was at the center of the oppression of our people? It was education. Apartheid was education. They said on education, separate them. What is the difference between us and Zimbabweans? Ian Smith in Zimbabwe, when he arrived, he wanted to do the same thing, but he realized he doesn't have sufficient white economy alone. And because he had no option, he now allowed all people of Zimbabwe, including Africans, to get same education. That's why you've got Zimbabweans being at that level, because they've never received an inferior education in their country. We're destroyed by inferior education. The private sector has got no role in the energy. I said to you, energy, power stations are a national security key point. So I'm not going to entrust the future of my country in the hands of a private man called Johan Rupert, who can decide any day I'm closing my power station the way he closes his own kitchen. No. The power stations and the energy cannot be in the individual rights. The same thing as water. Water is very strategic, key, important issue in our economy. You cannot entrust that responsibility with an individual. That's why the manifesto of the EFF says we will own strategic means of the economy. We don't just own everything, this saloon, this spas. We don't want such things. Anything strategic must be state-led, must be state owned. If you have a problem with us operating PRASA, I'm amenable to listen to that debate, but I'm going to own the railway lane. Because trains, these locomotives, they can be replaced at any time. If you take them, I can get them somewhere and put them there. But the day you wake up crazy and you say you are taking your railway lane out because you don't like Malema, what alternative can I get? Because it will take me years to put a railway lane. Why would you entrust railway lanes in the hands of the private sector? But locomotives you can give to the private sector, there's no problem. There's a difference. Compete there, not on strategic sectors of the economy. You can compete on everything. Strategic sectors of the economy are owned by the state. 2, it's not true that South African state-owned enterprises failed. They were made to fail. Let me tell you, here in PRASA, they rent 10 locomotives for 50 million. Then out of 10, they take 3 to go and be operational and put 7 in a storeroom. Then 3, at the end of the financial year, that 3, obviously it can't bring us back 50 million. It brings us back 15 million. They bring that report to Parliament and say, look at what we have done. We've been renting this, operating these things. This thing is not making money. From 50, we only made 15. They are not telling you we hired 10, we operated 3. Why? Make it fail so that everybody gets angry when you say I want to privatize it. But yeah, of course. Well, how can we spend 50 million and make 15 million? They were sabotaged. They were made to fail. And at the center of that was Praveen, your former boss. Well, corporate tax, we're going to make changes because we think we're not making as much as we're supposed to make because of these people who are engaged in illicit financial flows, people who are investing money in tax havens, and we ought to introduce tight laws, including tax avoidance. People say tax avoidance is not legal. Of course, it's not illegal. Your accountancy, that's your argument to do. But we don't want tax avoidance. We want everybody to pay what they're supposed to pay here in South Africa. Why do you punish the poor by increasing VAT? We want to reduce VAT from 15% to 14% because it's too heavy on the poor. Where will you make money from? We'll make money from the illicit financial flows, from corporate tax, which we are not generating sufficiently as we are supposed to be. I doubt, and I've said to Floyd, we need to make some investigation. I doubt if the Oppenheimers pay tax. Which taxman in the SARS will dare go to the Oppenheimers and tell them your taxes are due and this is a penalty, this is an interest? Who? If you value your job, who? Those are the people that are stealing from this country. They do as they wish and they are untouchables. They will never be under the EFF untouchables because we will not be in bed with monopoly capital that milks South Africa dry. We must make an infrastructural fund available to municipalities. And why should the municipalities apply for such a fund? Because as a national government, we must know where are the problems. There are certain municipalities that have got no source of income, even if you want to generate money from electricity, from water, they are rural municipalities, they've got no such capacity. Why can't we take the money and go and help them, including taking treasury people who are over-celebrated, to go and manage that money directly in the municipality to ensure that infrastructure is developed. Once you put piped water in the houses of our people, you put electricity, you put tar roads, and all the basic services, there is no way they will refuse to pay. Worse if you industrialize as well in those municipalities. But the EFF does not want provincial governments. So we don't want premiers. Premier for what? All of you seated here in RMB, one day just sit alone and ask yourself, what is the role of a premier, Mara? Like, what does the premier do? Like, what is the role of an MEC? What do they do? What does the MEC of Education do? Because the curriculum is determined up there. We are all going to receive the curriculum from national government. And we are all going to write the national certificate. There is no Limpopo vendor certificate. There is a national certificate. So what becomes the role of these people? My councillor is more useful than the premier, because if there is a sewer blockage, I can call him, he comes to the site of the sewer blockage, call the municipal workers from there to ask them to come and unblock the sewer. No single premier can unblock even a sewer. No premier can patch a pothole or MEC. These things are put there for political patronage, of creating positions for each other without any meaning. They must be scrapped. Why do you have deputy ministers? What role does a deputy minister play? Seated in this hall, you are the creme de la creme of our country. But if I were to randomly ask you, who is a deputy minister of agriculture? You're going to look at me like, is there something like that? Yet you are the most educated. I'm not talking to the illiterate. These people are getting so much money from you, but have got no role to play, patronage. Why do you need Minister of Higher Education and then another one of Science and Technology? What is higher education? Higher education is university and TVS, and science and technology is innovation and research. So innovation and research is a role of a university. So why do you separate this? It's one thing. You're separating it because you are trying to create as many jobs as possible for your supporters, and not just supporters, people who are in your faction.
So essentially streamlining government into two tiers, national and local government.
Gauteng must be a super metro with so many councillors with one mayor. Why mayor? The mayor can unblock a sewer. Look at that. There's provincial legislatures. Provincial, they don't meet. Why? Because they don't know they're meeting and then do what? They don't meet, they don't do anything. When they meet, it's a public announcement. Everybody knows legislature is going to meet today, because it doesn't happen more often. In parliament, we meet every day, including weekend. And when they say parliament is on recess, members of parliament are not on recess, are sent to do constituency work. Recess means constituency work. So we're working. Can you say the same about legislature? The answer is no. What do we need this for? Why are we paying so much for an institution that is irrelevant? Legislature is supposed to make the law. Why should there be a law of Limpopo and be a law of Cape Town when we are under one progressive constitution? Because every law we pass must be in line with the constitution. So we don't need any other law. One law for all of us. When they say the clubs are closing at 4 a.m. in Cape Town, it must be the same thing in Limpopo. Why should there be a separate law of Limpopo? How does this alcohol get people drunk? The ones of Cape Town, they get much better drunk, and this ones, it gets them more drunk. That's why they must sleep ill. What is the rationale behind having this kind of 2 different, 3, 9 separate legislation? Is unacceptable. It's waste of money.
Could you give us a sense, Mr. Malema, of your reading of the lay of the land? I would imagine you do some surveys. Where's the EFF? Where's the ANC, DA in your... Could you share a bit about how you get that number?
Well, we're sitting between 28 and 30%. We've passed the DA. And that's why the DA, most of you may not even know, why did the DA declare the EFF enemy number 1? I mean, we're running a race here. We are 3. There is number 1 there, you are number 2, I'm number 3. What type of madness is that for you to turn and look at number 3 instead of fighting with number 1 for you to become number 1? So you can see that their research told them you've got a problem. You are being overtaken by this one. So you may not get number 1, but you're also going to lose your position. So block this one. So you don't need any scientific reading to arrive at the conclusion that the real threat to the DA is the EFF. And the ANC is sitting between 38 and 40%. Because ANC rules Gauteng now with 50.1, which they got in 2019. Then they rule KZN. Then they lost Western Cape. That's how they managed to get 57%. If you lose KZN,
Correct.
you lose Western Cape, you lose Gauteng, and hope to get 50% national, numbers don't tally. So we, as far as we're concerned, that's where we are. There is a new phenomenon
Right.
called MK Party. We think it will have an impact in KZN.
Could you expand on that?
While President Zuma, when he was president of the ANC, declined the ANC support everywhere and only increased it in KZN. And when he lost the presidency, the ANC declined everywhere, including in KZN. But it has never declined under Zuma. So President Zuma enjoys a lot of support from KZN. And that's where we think it's going to have an impact. And even when you look at his strategy, he doesn't do what we do. Saturday I'm in Northwest, Sunday I'm in Free State, Thursday I'm in East London. Because we are a national organization. We are not some organization that relies on some base somewhere. So if MK eat, the ANC were going to eat it proper even without MK in KZN. Now imagine we've added MK. If the ANC loses that number in KZN significantly, forget. And let me tell you, Cyril won't be president once the ANC goes below 50%. He's going to resign because his own so-called supporters are going to say, we need to try someone else. So don't even ask me, okay, will you go with Cyril into coalition? Once there is a need for coalition, then you must know there is a need for Cyril to go. And it will not be initiated by the EFF. His own party is going to say, my guy.
Wow. Hope you guys have enjoyed the video. As you've seen the man himself explaining how he's going to put all these ideas into fruition to see that the state of South Africa becomes the model of Africa, where we see all this freedom from the foreigners and freedom from the investment, where the country itself has an upper hand on its economy and everything that is going on. Well, I don't know how the West is going to take this, but I guess that it's going to be a nice one if all South Africans can get to vote for Julius Malema. Well, I don't know about how South Africans feel about this, but it seems to be so good to be true. And it can be something that can actually inspire other African nations to stand up for their rights as a nation and make things happen. Because he has talked about very key areas and key points that every government needs to address. Things like land expropriation without compensation, because that's the truth, that's the fact that their land was taken without being paid for. This is really amazing and at the same time dangerous for the other parties out there. Just leave us a comment and tell us what you think about Julius Malema'S manifesto, because we have a little time before the national elections are going to be happening in South Africa, and we would like to know who is going to be the next president. Give us your thoughts in the comment section. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and surely I'll be bringing you more feedback and follow up on this specific topic about the elections that are ongoing in Africa. I mean, it's a really hot political climate for Africa, and it seems like every country is organizing elections, and we are about to see change, and some other countries, well, I don't know how I will say, but to God be the glory. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep it locked on DVC updates, and we shall be in touch. Bye-bye.